Hey guys, ready for the pre-meeting, the meeting that happens before the meeting? This is kind of like the pre-pod, the pod before the pod. So I've been sitting with this idea for a while. Last week was the first time I tried it, and this week I'm doing it again. We're bringing you a real and honest story. So these are definitely not polished. This is us telling you stories in a lot of detail because we think storytelling is one of the best ways we can lend our expertise to the industry. We're here in the trenches every day doing this work, and we want to share it with you, investors who wonder what happens when. Well, we're here to tell you. Today's story is one that took several years to get together because it's one of being sued and eventually going to trial for that lawsuit. It was one about an injury incurred by a tenant on a rental property. And this is kind of the worst nightmare, right? And when I talked about it on TikTok, there were a lot of comments that said, and this is why I'll never own rental property or never do the work of property management. And that's not what I hope people come away from this with. I want them to know that this is an incredible field full of great value, and we handled it, I think, really well. And there's a lot to be learned in that story. And so that is the story we're telling next. Hey, property managers, I know this show is for real estate investors, but I know I have a following among you all. I'm going to run out of stories eventually. I mean, not anytime soon, but I want your best stories that you'd love to share. We can anonymize them. We can anonymize you. We can do any of that. Just send me an email, HIWPMJ at onefocuspm.com, or find me online under Hold It with PMJen. All right, folks, thanks so much for meeting me for this pre-pod meeting. On to the pod.
Razzle dazzle, we're the best. No, the courts aren't on your side, but they're not on the tenant side either. Jen, like, you are independently wealthy when you are naked. I am over treating property management the same as real estate sales. I guess I'll lead the witness. I think it's freaking scammy. Welcome to Hold It with PMJen, the show for real estate investors who buy and hold forever and ever. Amen.
Welcome to Hold It with PMJen, the show for investors who buy and hold forever and ever. Today's another really cool episode. They're never not cool episodes, but I'm going to win by introducing my guest before I get started. She is Jessy 𝐃𝐨𝐧'𝐭, Director of Operations at One Focus Property Management, and my one and only sister. Welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here. She had to belch.
Just a little burp. We'll get that out of there.
Or will we? The choice is yours.
Today we're telling another one of our small business property manager stories, and this one has gotten a lot of attention lately on the TikTokies. This one is about how we were sued by a tenant, and we actually had to go and seat a jury for a trial and get prepared for what a slip and fall would look like in front of a court. And the story I want to tell you today has a cast of characters, right? So there's me, I'm Jen, and I own One Focus Property Management. And Jessy, who's been here this entire time, not true for all of our stories, she's our Director of Operations. We have our tenant, who we won't be sharing their name. We might share that it's a female by incidence of pronouns, but it's only relevant to know that they were a tenant of ours, and we'll get into a little bit about their tenancy. Of course, we have the property owner. This property owner owns just this house as a rental property, and it is a family property. So they don't live locally. This was where mom and dad live. Mom and dad are no longer with us, and they've just decided to hold on to it as a rental. That's the way and they have had us managing it. Now, there's an extended cast of characters. So you have to realize there are two different insurance companies. So the owner has an insurance company. They have a homeowner's insurance policy for $100,000 liability. Ooh, little light. Lighter than our requirement of $300 for a single family house, but that is what it was at the time. We are additionally insured on that policy. Wonderful. Now, One Focus at the time carried a liability policy that had a $1 million limit for something like this. And in this case, our coverage was considered excess coverage and would only apply to us. Then you actually had 4 different attorneys.
Well, that's a cast of characters.
Right. The plaintiff's attorneys, so the plaintiff, the tenant, had one attorney. My side, so me and the owner, between the two of us, had 3 attorneys. So where do those come from? Well, the owner's insurance, because we're added as additionally insured on that policy, puts up a defense for both of us. But that means they hire attorneys for each of us. So the owner was hired an attorney, I was hired an attorney. And because the amount of coverage on the owner's policy was so low and mine was so high, my insurance company was also on alert and said, we're going to assign counsel as well to represent our interest. So that's where 3 attorneys on mine and the owner's side come in and 1 attorney on the plaintiff's side. What you need to know about this situation. So this tenant lived in this property before this incident for like 5 years. It is a single family home. It's actually a manufactured home on a concrete foundation, little crawl space basement. It has a gravel driveway. It has a front deck and a back deck. No paved anything, no public sidewalks. And this tenant was responsible the entire time they lived there for all the snow and ice removal, as well as lawn care. So anything exterior like that, they're doing. The other thing to know is that this property wasn't on public water or septic. It was on a well.
And septic.
Oh, a well and septic. Yeah, it wasn't on public sewer. So it was on a well, and near the home, there was a well cap cover. And so if you've never seen one, it stands about, maybe 6 inches above the ground. It's maybe 5 or 6 inches across. It's a metal thing. It's covered, it's secure, and it is how we access the well when we need to work on parts and things like that. And over the time that the tenant lived there, there was one time we had to access the well via the cover and work on some components of it, and then that was it. So that is the way we're going to set this up.
And it was physically near the home, which they often are. In this case, I think it was not even 6 feet from the actual structure.
Oh, no, it was, I think, even less than 3 feet.
Yeah,
away
it was
from the structure.
close.
Yeah. So, and it had been there, of course, the whole time the tenant lived there. Still is. And so what happened was the tenant called in one day and spoke with a person on the team and said, I had this fall. It was snowing 2 days ago. I went outside my home. I fell. They fell and they broke 2 bones in their back, and they had to have these surgeries. And their question to us was, were we liable? Literally, just like that. Were we liable? And our person took the message, got it to the right person.
She asked them clarifying questions.
Yep, she did a great job. So if you're wondering what to do in a situation like that, ask clarifying questions. When did this happen? How did this happen? Did you seek treatment? Like anything you can get just as far as information. Of course, that party's trying to get you to agree to something, but you're just trying to get information at that point. And because we record our phone calls, that was very helpful in this case. So we got that call, we ran it up the flagpole, we sent a technician out immediately to check the well cap cover and make sure, because after a phone call, she mentioned that she fell on this well cap cover thing on that second phone call. We got some more clarifying information, sent somebody out. No, there was nothing wrong with the well cap cover. There was no obligation on the manager to do any snow or ice removal. And so we empathized. We said, well, we empathize with what has happened here. There is no liability. Thing we didn't do in that exact moment, I don't think. Did we notify the insurance right away on that?
We notified the owner to put their insurance on notice.
Yeah.
Which is our typical process.
Right.
If an injury or incident, a safety incident occurs on any of the properties we manage, no matter how seemingly minor, whether or not medical treatment was sought, we always let the owner know. And whether or not they do it, they don't have to file a claim. But it goes a long way if you put your insurance company on notice that something did happen and a claim could occur.
Yeah. And I don't believe that the insurance company was put on notice at that time based on their reaction when the next thing happens. And then about a year and a half go by. We got a notice in the mail that this attorney had gotten representation with an intent to sue over this personal injury claim. And that was a big surprise. We were a little bit like, wow, this is coming out of, nowhere after hearing nothing. And at that point, of course, made sure all the attorneys were on notice. And the people listed as parties to the suit were us, the management company, the property owner, and the vendor who worked on the well that one time, like seemingly unrelated, changed nothing about the well cap cover, but they named them in the suit as well. We hadn't gotten served yet. Do you remember the day we were served?
Well, it was toward the end of the statute of limitations. And
it was 2 days before the end of the statute of limitations.
So we knew time was ticking by, and when it happened, it was just all kind of so unbelievable. Like, what is the case? What is the the allegation here.
And we were expecting this. The attorney
Right.
had told us, if you're going to get it, it's going to be before this date, because that's when the end of the statute of limitations is. And so we were served, and that created a lot of kerfluffle and information gathering, but then nothing.
Crickets.
And that's kind of like the thing to know about this story. Like from between the time we were served and this all settled was about 2 years. So what would happen is like 6 or 8 months would go by. I'd even reach out to the attorneys after like 4 months and be like, did I miss something? Am I on top of it? And they would say I was. So it would be long silence and something would happen. And basically after about 1.5 years in, we had done interrogatories, which is like paper depositions. And they had sent over a long list of questions asking for all kinds of stuff. And the attorneys helped us fill those out. Like, you don't have to answer that, or you can just say this or whatever. So we did those. And then, yeah, like 18 months in, we got deposed. Well, I got deposed.
I get deposed.
I was the only one who got deposed, and I had never been deposed before. And this whole time, everybody we talked to just kept saying just what you said. There's no case. What's the case? Like every insurance company person, every attorney, everyone we talked to was like,
what am I in defense of? The fact that it snowed
right.
in Pennsylvania that January?
Everybody was a little bit like, what's the claim? What is this about? And I knew enough to know that it would very likely be settled. That the cost of defending such a thing means that oftentimes people will get these like small settlements, and that can feel bad or wrong, but that's how it's done in business. So I kind of thought that's the road it was going to go. Even when we got to deposition time and it was starting to get a little bit more real, I was very confident that in a court of law, they would see the reason in all this and there would be no problem. I really felt good.
Because at this point, a lot of money is being spent on both sides in pursuit and defense of this. And you start to see a lot of people who make a lot of money, show up in a room and do their darndest for their party. And that is kind of alarming. You're like, oh, this is really getting legs.
Yeah.
This is happening.
Because I'm not writing checks for these attorneys. Remember, the insurance companies are writing checks. I'm just answering emails, showing up where I'm told to show up. I'm playing my part. And so, yeah, you see 5, $400 an hour people around the table plus a court reporter. And you start adding up the numbers and go, well, this must be something, And so
you were there all day.
Oh, I was there half a day. I was there 4 hours answering questions. It was the most frustrating thing in the world. In my case, the attorney on the opposition side, the plaintiff's attorney, was really quite stupid in their behavior. Like they just said and did the dumbest things. I remember he asked me over and over and over again if at any point in the tenancy, did I move the well cap cover? Did I move it?
Wells are so notoriously easily moved.
He's like, did you move it up? Did you move it down? I said, sir, I've never touched it. I had one man work on it, and that was just inside the well. The cover wasn't changed. And then he kept asking, and I said, do you mean, did I move it like away from the house or closer to the house? And he said, yeah. I said, sir, did I re-dig a well? And, and then my attorney's looking at me like, shut up.
Because that's the intent of the line of questioning, is to frustrate you, is to get you off your game, or maybe even second guess yourself. Did I move the well?
Did I forget that I hired a well company to go bore a 250-foot well in the ground? Did I do that secretly from the tenant? That was very frustrating. One thing though, whenever I interact with the legal system, I get a lead. And so we had to go out and feed the meter at one point, and the court reporter was like, so, she wasn't really paying attention. She just does this all day. Whenever you say, she types. And she just kind of was like, so what is it you do? And I'm like, well, I'm a property manager. And she goes, I think we need to call you. We have this problem. I'm like, I know you do, girl. Here's my card. Like, don't worry. I remember I got sued once by a tenant for a deposit. And the next day the judge called me about his units. And I was like, one in court, got the doors. Awesome. So the point of the story we're at, we've been sued. We've done depositions. And again, I think this is all going to get settled.
It's all going to get settled.
So I get a call that's like, hey, in 3 weeks, you need to take this entire week off your calendar. This is when the trial's going to be. And I was a little bit like, all right, I'm going to get to see what a real trial looks like. I go, for real, you're not going to settle it. He goes, I don't think we're going to settle it. I forgot to tell you how much they were asking. So in the beginning, the numbers were all just a little unclear, but the demands in the beginning were between like 800,000 and 1.1 million. The minute they found out our coverages, that there was 100,000 and $1 million, that became the demand. They didn't know about any umbrella coverages, which both owner and I have, but they didn't know about that, but they were asking for that. And of course we were like, no. No, that won't work for us. We are getting closer to this, and the attorney's coming to prepare me the week before the trial.
I was there.
I want you to tell the story of this meeting, because this is probably when I had the biggest transition, big turn.
We had met one of the attorneys before. You may have met the other one at the deposition, but the other one had met us in office, and, you know, he seemed a little disorganized. My faith wasn't super high in him to begin with, and these two come in and they were very down on the plaintiff's attorney. They had one of them had a lot of experience against that attorney in a courtroom, and had a lot of good insight on that. And of course, a lot of good insight about being in front of that particular judge. And they were sharing it all with you. And you seem to come to the knowledge during that meeting, days before, less than a week before, that you were going to be on the witness stand. You knew it, but you didn't really understand what that meant.
I didn't understand what that meant. And then the other big realization was that this was a jury trial.
It was a jury trial, and that jury selection was
in like 2 days.
It was coming. You were going to be there.
Yeah.
And straight up jury of your peers. And then you can have some bad behavior sometimes, bad language, big reactions. And
yeah,
I could tell that the stranger attorney was looking at the more familiar attorney in a way that was like, she might be a problem. And they were kind of beating around the bush of telling you like what was expected of you at the stand. They were very confident in your testimony because you had been deposed. All your answers were great. But they're like, well, this is a highly reactive individual, and we need her to tone it down. So they were kind of telling what the jury needs to see over and over and over again. Do not let this dumb attorney for the plaintiff
and I can tell you, like, while they're dancing around and being polite, telling their client to, button it up and not be like this, in my mind, I was coming to the realization that this was going to be a jury of my peers deciding, that this wasn't going to be a judge. Very confident in front of judges. I just know what a jury of my peers how they might behave here locally.
You know what's better than building generational wealth? Not a damn thing. And obviously the best way to do that is through buy and hold real estate. But let's be real, managing your properties yourself, that's a one-way ticket to burnout. This is supposed to be an investment, not a burden. At One Focus Property Management, we don't just manage your properties, we make buy and hold real estate actually work. We handle everything: tenant screening, maintenance, rent collection, you name it. All you do is watch your portfolio and net worth grow. We make sure you never even think about quitting real estate investing, because the secret to buy and hold is to hold it for a very long time. And you can't do that when you sell every time you have a problem. We're the biggest, baddest property management team in Lycoming, Clinton, Northumberland, Montour, and Columbia counties. And we do it all to give you more protection, less work, and absolutely no drama. So let's turn your rental properties into wealth-building machines. Learn more at onefocusPM.com. That's onefocusPM.com.
So I said, you guys, you need to be explicit with her of what behavior you expect and you need from her and the consequences if she does it. And they did a great job being like, okay, we can be real with you. None of this. None of this. Keep your story's great. Your evidence is great. Everything's great. But your presentation is not going to go well. Arrogance, all that stuff does not play well to a jury at all. So that was kind of entertaining.
I hang up on that just because I think if you're listening to this story and going, what if this were me? That's a part I never considered. As I told the lawyers there, I get by a lot on this wild arrogance, on the presentation, my posturing. I know I come in a power position, and I do that very purposefully. It made sense, but I needed somebody to really hold it up to me. And I'm glad I had a couple of days to get my mind around that, to get prepared for what is it? Because by the way, they were telling me for 4 days I had to act peaceful. There were going to be arrows flung at me, and I needed
And they were going to be lying.
and they were going to be lying. They were going to be saying the wrong things. And I had to be cool. And they said I was going to be on the stand for what, like 2 hours, 1 to 2 hours. And that was going to be especially difficult.
Yeah, because you were like, how long do I have to act right? I need to know. I need to get it right in my brain. So that was on, I think, a Friday. We had that meeting, and the jury trial was set for Thursday. And that weekend, you were reeling. You were calling me. I don't know if I can do it.
No, it was like 2 days before jury selection, and then it was going to be like 2 business days until trial.
You
So there
were-
was days between jury selection and like, because I had seen the jury of my peers, I had seen how difficult it was to act right. And we'll get into the jury selection here, because that's, I think, the part that most people have never seen. You know, I went to the jury selection, and my attorneys were very funny talking about what they did and didn't want. Oh my gosh, the one attorney was like, we don't want men with long hair.
Same.
We don't want young people. We want old ladies with kids. There was a lot of discussion about whether or not we wanted medical professionals or EMTs, people who worked at insurance companies, codes officials, right? People who did this kind of code enforcement work. So there's a lot of talk about that. When we went in, there was like questioning, and I have to tell you, it was just so awkward. It's a very crowded room. And the one thing that didn't bode well for my behavior is something that happened in that room. The legal name of my company is very similar to the name of a real estate company in town. So legally, I have this, it's Fish Property Management, LLC, which is very similar to Fish Real Estate, a separate sales company in our area. Because that company has a much longer like brand recognition, when people see Fish, they just automatically say real estate. And so in the courtroom, when they were reading things about the names of the parties and things like that, they were saying Fish Real Estate and not Fish Property Management. And that made me react. I mean, that is unacceptable. Like, my name's Jennifer. If you were calling me Julie Rowlands, I would have raised my hand and said, I'm so sorry. Please correct that. I'm Jennifer. And if you're looking for Julie Rowlands, it ain't me, right? Maybe that's about another person. So I couldn't interrupt. But at one point, the attorneys got called up to the judge, and I went to like the paralegal, and I was like, you need to get everybody on the right about this. And she couldn't. It kept going on. And only when it was all over did I go up to my attorney. And of course, as it turns out, that solved the problem for the rest of it. So we sat a 12-person jury, and then it was the weekend, and we were supposed to be going into trial on Tuesday. And I got a call at like 4 or 4:30 on Monday. Again, difficult. I cleared the whole calendar. Like, so nothing could be on those days. I didn't know if the trial was going to take that long, but they said it could even take a day or two longer, depending on how things went. And so I had no appointments, and I had to be prepared to have no phone, internet, nothing. So you can't take phones and stuff into the courthouse. So I cleared the week, got the call, and it was the attorneys, and they told me about the negotiation they'd been doing that afternoon. I guess the plaintiff's attorney had called our attorney and said, $875,000, and, we'll settle this, right? We don't have to go to trial this week. We all have a clear calendar. And our attorneys were like, no. And they come back and said something like, 700 or 750 or something. And we said no. And they came back and said something like 550.
No.
And from what I understand, our attorney said something like, listen, I have 125 authorized. Like, I can make a deal at 125. I might be able to get 25 more thousand. Like, I might be able to get
Like, it's a
150.
yard sale.
Like, I don't know. It depends if Jim's in a good mood. And yeah, there was like one more in between, and we were like, no, 150. And it settled at 150. And things were signed. I got a signed settlement, release of claims. This money comes from the insurance company. So 100,000 came from the owner's insurance company. 50,000 came from mine. Now, there were additional costs. Like, the owner's insurance company did pay for a lot of legal expenses. My insurance company paid for some. So we did not pay any money. I did not, besides our time and effort and all of that.
Insurance premiums.
Well, that's just it. I mean, and you and I know we're on one of those great rate locks. So we've got a rate lock for a couple of years, but this $50,000, right? Plus whatever cost of lawyers our company for that excess coverage attorney had. That's going to be on what's called a loss run report.
Right.
So every time I apply for insurance, they're going to pull a loss run and see, hey, they had a loss of this nature or whatever at this point, and that's supposed to give you an idea of the risk. What was your perspective after the settlement? I remember you had kind of a reaction right away.
Well, it's just so irritating because I'm such a principled individual.
Yeah.
And I know that it took a long time for you in business to kind of let go of that principle for best business practices, but it is hard. It's hard to see because you didn't have any say. You did not have any say if they settled or not.
Nobody asked me. They only called me when it was settled.
And you want to run through and say, how would that have turned out? You don't know. You don't know. It's an individual against a company and against insurance companies. And it's kind of like they have so much in this. Any individual in a slip and fall or accident case, like, what do they have? It doesn't really matter. It's all drops in the bucket to these big insurance conglomerates. But it's so principled. And I'm just like, I hate that person was even a little bit successful, even after all their legal fees. It was probably very small.
Yeah, the assumption is this person got in the neighborhood of 50 to 70,000 after the split and expenses and all that kind of thing. You know, it's so interesting the way you just put that about the perception being it's drops in the bucket to an insurance company. That was some of the feedback I got on TikTok when I told this story is, why do you care? Your insurance company got sued. Why don't you just switch insurances? They didn't understand. The insurance puts up the defense and pays what you have a policy for, but your insurance company is not on the line here. You are. So just to give you an idea, in my case, I had $1 million of coverage plus $1 million umbrella. At the time, I have more now. But at the time,
insured.
I had 2 million and the owner had that 100 and then whatever they had personal. So say we caught a judgment bigger than 1.1, and they were talking about that, right? There was some testimony going to be given that it was $2.6 million to take care of this person through the end of their life. They had an end of life or a life planner person, expert witness they were going to call. But the possibility is you catch a judgment larger than what your liability coverage is, and that's going to hit you, right? And in my world, I do this under One Focus Property Management, which is my LLC, and it would hit the equity of that. Okay, unless, of course, I've broken the corporate veil that my personal belongings are on the line. Whoa. So, yeah, I think there's a big misconception there that the only thing that's on the line here is the insurance company. And that is not true. The insurance is what I bought in case this happens, and it is helping me, but I am on the line.
Yes.
The other thing that I remember just out of that big realization and having sat in the jury selection, sitting in that room, it feels like you're on trial. It feels like you did something wrong. Yes. All eyes are on you, and that did not feel good. That was not, well, I was very interested to see what a trial would look like in that way. I've never been part of like a jury or anything.
And like any good millennial woman, you spend a lot of your time watching true crime and taking in true crime media. And the reason it's on the TV is because this person was wronged and they're trying to show you justice being served. So most of the time when we're exposed to courtrooms, you're seeing a guilty person be convicted.
Most of the time. In criminal situations, you were saying that.
Well, civil affairs don't make good TV.
They don't make good TV. Another question I got a lot was, did you change your lease because of this? And I think that's so funny. Absolutely not. There was nothing wrong with my lease. This was not a fault of the lease, and nothing I could have written into my lease could have changed this person's ability to say and file whatever complaint they wanted, whatever claim they wanted.
I just think people are so accustomed to signing waivers for anything that they do that's a little bit dangerous that they think that you just get them to sign a waiver on your lease, and then anything that happens to them doesn't count.
Right.
That's not how it doesn't work like that.
It doesn't work like that. Let's talk a little bit about the lessons, right? So if I'm an investor, I do want to make sure that everything is being signed. I do want to make sure that I have insurance in place. I have enough insurance in place. If I am providing services, like maybe we were supposed to be providing lawn and snow services there. How often are you checking up on your manager to make sure they're keeping up with these high liability tasks, right? So inspecting what you expect.
How often are you clearing snow and ice from your well cap? Still never.
Still never.
Still
It doesn't
never.
avoid this. If you're a property manager, being additionally insured on all of your owner's insurance policies is a non-negotiable.
Yeah, non-negotiable.
It's non-negotiable, and
That united defense is the only defense.
yes. Yes, I can see this going a whole lot worse if there were different.
There'd just be a lot of pointing fingers.
Right. A lot of pointing fingers. And we were together because we have been their agent. Luckily, this has been great. No rise of feelings. One thing I came away with, so when I went through this tenancy, I went through the whole tenancy. And it was a long tenancy, 8 years or so. I never tear a file apart like that. Hardly ever. We have a debrief process when something goes wrong, but I hardly ever tear a file apart like that. I went through every communication, every work order, every text message. And you know what? I was so proud of my team. There were 2 different individuals who stood out particularly in how they executed the everyday nature of their job to extraordinary success in this situation. And I was really happy and appreciative to see it and get to acknowledge it because people did know this was going on around the office. There was a little bit of curiosity and things like that. And so I came away feeling really good about how we handled it and everything that we did. And there's no way to avoid this. This is kind of a cost of doing business. And that's one thing I've learned about maturing in the property management business, but in business in general. You do enough business for long enough. This is a thing that happens.
Yes.
And you can judge your preparedness for it and success with it after you've been through it.
And documentation and training your team and having the documentation built into all your processes is so critical. And, time and time again, we're praised by lawyers, insurance adjusters, accountants, all types of professional services providers. When they need documentation for our defense, for our owner's defense, we have it time and time again. And they're always so surprised. And that's because other property managers aren't.
Mm-hmm.
They aren't.
Yeah, they are usually surprised. They come to it from the assumption that we're not going to have it or we're not going to find it. Recording our phone calls helped out a lot in this claim because the tenant had made their call. We recorded that call. They gave a certain set of facts related to the incident, which did not match the facts in their deposition, nor the hospital records.
What is the truth?
Additionally interesting was this person was allowed to be deposed via Zoom. Hot tip. You ever in a personal injury claim? No depositions by Zoom because we have no idea how this person was physically presenting. And then all of a sudden we had some expert witnesses saying, oh no, constant care and physical therapy, $2.6 million to take care of this older person through the end of their life. And so we were regretting making that decision. And remember, the jury selection happened like right before a weekend and the trial was after the weekend. There was discussion of, well, if they show up showing impairment and how they move, we're going to have a private investigator follow them around. And then what happened the very next day before the weekend?
Well, we found out that when this tenant left the property in question, they moved to another town right up the street from one of our employees. And that employee reported that they see this person walking in their community all the time.
Yeah.
Completely ambulatory with no aids, no braces, canes, walkers, wheelchairs.
And he said, hi. How are you?
They greet each other. This employee drives a very branded, wrapped lime green machine. That previous tenant knows exactly who he is, and
because he had worked on the house many times.
And she did not hide it from him that she was
doing fine.
Very ambulatory.
Yeah. And of course, that jury selection arrived using the assistance of a cane and very mobility restricted. And so we don't know if a private investigator was hired over the weekend or not because we never made it to the trial. But those are the things that come up and you just wonder, like, does it matter that this person came into the office and paid rent in person? That little note could just make all the difference in the world when you take notes on your business.
And it did matter. Because we had a security video of that person perfectly ambulatory coming into our office, paying in person, coming up steps with no handrail. Historic district can't do it.
Yeah,
we love a handrail. We're not allowed. But all that plays into it, and really training your team members on collecting information regarding incident reports like that.
Yeah,
and it might be your only chance to gather information, because as soon as they talk to their insurance provider, their doctor, their lawyer, whomever, all of a sudden that information superhighway completely shuts down and you don't get any more access to that information. And in this case, our employee was tremendous in asking clarifying questions and getting really precise information out of that tenant when she did not initially offer it.
Right. Yeah, exceptional job all around. I share this story for educational purposes. I want you all to know what the real life experience is like, and we'll keep sharing these stories as long as you find them valuable. Thanks so much for joining us again. Listen, I want you to go onto YouTube if you're not already there, if you're on the podcast, and I want you to subscribe. I'm putting out even more educational content for buy and hold investors to know how to work with property managers and do better property management themselves. It's my life's mission. The least you can do is subscribe. All right, holders, what are we doing? Buy and hold forever and ever. Amen. Oh, you're going to real estate hell. You didn't pray, Jessy.
Amen.